After Sledgehammer Games showed with Advanced Warfare and World War II that they couldn't be trusted with the Call of Duty name, Treyarch were brought in to rectify and release their unfinished project. Except with one less year of development, Treyarch have arguably produced their worst ever Call of Duty. With the new generation of consoles launching in the last few weeks, plenty of games have welcomed new fans and those that have upgraded with open arms. Free optimization, free upgrades. The majority of companies have granted these to players without question. After all, it's an industry standard. Activision, on the other hand, charges you extra for these upgrades, specifically 120 frames per second, ray tracing, faster loading times, etc. Initially, I did not want to fall for this lazy and ignorant cash grab, so I purchased the standard edition. For those who are unaware, I am playing the Xbox One version of Cold War on the Series X, and I thought this would be fine, until around 4 minutes in and barely 30 seconds into gameplay, my game crashed my Xbox. I thought it was a minor blip, until it happened again, and again, and again, to a point where I was unable to complete one of the missions. Naturally, I did my research and found that apparently the standard edition was having trouble with crashes. As unacceptable as that was, I needed to complete the campaign in order to review the game, so I reluctantly upgraded to the cross-gen version of the game with the hope that it would fix the issues. Ignoring the fact that this meant I had to download a mind-boggling 130 gigabytes, which by the way is absurd considering the amount of content in the game, I still experienced crashes. And I'll get to zombies later in the review, but I couldn't get past 20 minutes of gameplay before my Xbox would exfil my ass out of the game. And before you ask, no, I have not had any crashes on any other game on this new console. This is a Cold War problem. Actually, calling it a problem is an understatement. It's an absolute disaster. I've been playing games since the age of 4, and I've never experienced more crashes whilst playing a game. And this is from Activision, from Treyarch, household names in the gaming industry who have poured millions into producing this AAA game that I struggle to even play. When the game wasn't crashing or lagging in cutscenes, I got to experience Cold War's campaign. Set in the 80s and served to you as a sequel to Black Ops 1, even though we have Black Ops 2, Cold War's story is a cheap and cliché tale that tries too hard to be as excellent as its idol. Let's start with some positives though. For what I can recall is a first for the franchise, we get to name our character, and more importantly give them personality traits which affect gameplay. And these traits are significant enough to be noticeable. Before the start of each mission, you can view the evidence board, detailing all the evidence you have gathered. Those who want to feel more immersed in the story can spend time soaking in these details. There are some dialogue options present here, akin to Black Ops 2, whereby there are multiple narrative options a player can take, encouraging replayability. And lastly, there are 2 missions that stand out to me. One involves stealth mechanics and has you tiptoeing through the streets of East Berlin, and the other is just great game design. Albeit the second part of this KGB mission is just typical shooting 10,000 enemies, the first part is devoid of anything like that. Tasked with producing a bunker key, you are presented with multiple different options to obtain the key, and it's nice to see someone at Treyarch was bothered to put this much effort into the mission. Because it's clear to see that the writers of Cold War were only bothered in giving you a nostalgia boner. Oh look, it's Woods. Oh look, it's Mason. Hey, do you remember that tower from the first game? Oh no, the numbers, what do they mean? Treyarch even had the audacity to throw Imran fucking Zakayev into one of the missions. This is the exact same problem that Modern Warfare had, whereby the writers couldn't think of anything original, so they just threw old references and characters into your face to distract you from the boring plot. This video is 8 minutes long, and I can only imagine how long an equivalent video would be for Cold War. Disregarding these lazy Easter eggs, the plot and characters of Cold War fall flat of expectations. There's a typical ominously named villain who has run-of-the-mill plans to use America's arsenal against her and trigger a third world war because, I don't know, America bad? You travel across the world in less than 4 hours worth of gameplay to stop him, or at least try to stop him before the game stops you. You'll be partnered with copy and paste characters who are simply present to make up the numbers. It's even hard to fall for Treyarch's nostalgia lust because any iconic characters have had their voice actors changed. The original Black Ops had the likes of Sam Worthington, Gary Oldman, and even Ice Cube. Cold War comes nothing close to this, and I won't go into heavy spoilers, but the final mission is tragically anticlimactic. Overall, it's an experience that you'll quickly forget about once you hop into multiplayer. I was fortunate enough to experience Cold War's beta, and it suited my playstyle down to the ground. I stumbled upon the MP5 and spent the next few hours running and gunning my way around the various maps, nearly always finishing my game with a positive KD. However, having had the time to experience and assess the multiplayer in its entirety, it's a shallow and poorly designed experience that will leave a bad taste in your mouth. I mentioned that Cold War only had 2 years of development, and this becomes evident when you look at its launch content. 8 6v6 maps, a small number of primary weapons, and lacking modes such as Capture the Flag, Headquarters and Uplink. Cold War's multiplayer is simply not complete. I'm sure more maps, weapons and game modes will come in the future as free DLC, but games are to be judged at launch, and right now the selection is lackluster. The maps themselves are very hit and miss. Some have sections that play really well, whilst others are thrown together in a desperate attempt to not feel like a 3-lane copy of older maps. The map design is not helped with the game's terrible visibility. Poor character lighting results in the inability to spot enemies that should be visible. Having said that, some of the maps don't do themselves any favours, with tons of sightlines and potential spots for enemies to linger. The less said about the middle of Cartel, the better. As I mentioned, Cold War's gameplay is very much suited to running and gunning, which encourages that playstyle and also a defensive playstyle of holding an area. The action is very fast paced, and couple that with the poor ADS time for snipers, means that you'll be forced to avoid using these bolt action rifles. The map design doesn't help much with this either, with Satellite being the only map that encourages using a sniper. The gun balance across the board is poor, with the MP5 staking a claim for one of the most overpowered guns in COD history. And the proximity mine is a terrible addition to the gameplay. I understand things like claymores and bouncing betties have been present in older CODs, but the proximity mine is literally just a free and easy kill. Shooting a weapon online is not helped with the confusing aim assist. Exclusive Ace made a great video on this, but the best way to describe it is that the aiming just feels off. It feels almost impossible to pick enemies off at range, further encouraging you to use your favourite submachine gun. I've had typical problems with hit detection, lag compensation and spawns, but this is Call of Duty, so I don't expect anything different. A very controversial aspect of recent CODs is skill-based matchmaking, and Cold War is no different. I'm thinking of making an entire video on this topic, so I won't go into too much detail, but the quick summary is that skill-based matchmaking results in very competitive games with little breathing room for casual fun. This casual fun is further hampered by the fact that lobbies disband after each game. My friends and I were playing Search and Destroy, talking with the other team between rounds. In any older COD, this rivalry could continue for multiple games, but in Cold War, it stops after only one. I have to say, however, that I've been relatively lucky with regards to bugs in multiplayer, but many others have not been so fortunate. Head on over to the Cold War subreddit and you'll spot many posts complaining about crashes, facial animations, and whatever the hell this is. Altogether, it's further proof that this title simply isn't finished, and Cold War's multiplayer lacks any sort of features that make it stand out against its predecessors. As I mentioned, Zombies is borderline unplayable for me, but what I did experience was extremely fun. Yes, there is only one map, which is disappointing, and yes, there are bugs present, but the atmosphere, map layout, and accessibility is all very good. That accessibility is crucial for me, as this reminded me of more of a classic Zombies experience. I understand that perhaps the hardcore player base would desire a more hardcore experience, but as a casual player, it's great to not feel lost or out of place whilst exploring the map and its secrets. There are a few new features such as an upgrade system, loadouts, and even kill streaks. I also think the addition of exfil is great, as every 5 rounds you and your team must make a tactical decision on whether or not it's a good time to leave. But of course, the game tended to make that decision for me. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War is an unfinished product. It's a game that epitomizes the franchise, lacking any sort of meaningful innovation, with a rushed campaign, lazy multiplayer design, and littered with game-breaking bugs. This was the perfect year to take a break, the perfect year to let Warzone and Modern Warfare continue to thrive, and the perfect year to not milk the cash cow once again. And yet, here we are, with a half-finished game and millions of people jumping into its mediocrity once again. Admittedly, some of the campaign missions are well designed, and Zombies was a lot of fun, but they're the only reasons I'm not giving this a 4 out of 10. If you ever need proof that this franchise has lost its way, look no further than the tragedy of this game. As ever, if there are any upcoming games you'd also like me to review, please let me know.